Signe Sejlund, costume designer for The Undoing on HBO, a modern twist on the classical whodunit tale. The life of a wealthy New York therapist turns upside down after she and her family get involved with a murder case. I guess starring Nicole Kidman. I guess can you talk about just the inspirations you had for Grace? Nicole's got such a striking figure in this show. I think she's it really plays up her height. She just looks so tall, and everything about her is just very specific. I guess can you talk about where did you start in trying to figure out Grace's look?
Yeah, I mean, when I first read the script, I knew that Nicole was gonna play the lead, and of course, she's so tall and she's so magical. So that was a big first step, and then very quickly we decided that her hair should be like big, red, and curly. So there you have two major things, and then I am not afraid to be quite bold. So there was, I mean, so she's walking around New York constantly, and so she needed coats because that's what you wear when you are in New York, and it's it became the coat show.
It really did, but I mean, the coats are really incredible, and I think one of the reasons, I mean, I want to get to the green coat, which I feel like is was kind of memed into the consciousness, but I just found the length of the coats and having her in these trenches and dusters or whatever, it looked, it just is so different, I think, than maybe expectations, and I just found that fascinating and really really cool, honestly, for lack of a better word.
I think I tried to, well, so even though it's a modern story, I tried to do something that was timeless and something that was classic. And I like fashion, but I tried to kind of stay out of fashion at the same time and do something that was just something that you would want to watch in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And so her style, I feel, is all sometimes even kind of she looks like something from a fairy tale, with her hair and her long coats that are almost a cape, that are almost something that she can protect herself with, that are almost a shield to the world, and something that is kind of it's it blends in with the nature and New York, and then at the same time she sticks out. So that's kind of that whole thing all the way through.
So you mentioned the coat show or whatever, but I mean the green coat was so iconic. I guess can you talk about where the decision to go with that look, or how you found that coat and stuff? It just is. I think it's a lasting memory of the show for sure. At least a visual image. Can you talk a little about that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it was that fairy tale look. Almost, she was kind of almost so the coat actually has a huge big hood, so it's almost kind of the French lieutenant's woman, right? It's that kind of big hood that we never put on, but you could if she needed to hide. But I mean, and then the green color it's like it should feel almost like that it was a part of nature. So it has that furry surface, which was very intentional. And the red coat also has that kind of a very texturous and furry almost. And I mean, yeah, and it was just I don't know, it just became basically, to begin with, we just wanted her to have one, but since we shot over such a long stretch, and then we started shooting in January and ended in July, so you go through all those seasons, and then suddenly the script developed and we had to keep it a way longer stretch. So the green, of course, plays a long part, but it's not I mean, it wouldn't have stand alone if the story and the character and everything else didn't match.
I think that's very true. Can you talk about working with Nicole and your collaboration with her? I feel she's she's like I guess like she embodies Grace so well, like we said, and like I think she plays up the physicality of like her height in this. So
Mm,
I mean, she just like kind of
mm,
leans into that in ways maybe she
mm.
hasn't done in other projects. So I guess can you talk a little about like that and like working with her?
But she's amazing, and she's just I mean, such a fantastic actress, and she is kind of mysterious. Um, and the thing is that the second I started to talk to her about her character and what I thought I would do with her, she just got it immediately, and she just played along 100%. So basically, I wanted her character to, even though she's like that upper east side, super rich and well educated and blah blah, um, she has she has an eye for art, and she has an eye for music, so, and she has an eye for maybe even shopping vintage pieces. So we started a huge hunt on little vintage pieces that she could have in her wardrobe. I think she had from her mom. So that's kind of where all the different patterns and textures are in her wardrobe. And she got that immediately, and it was really interesting and very, very exciting to work with
So
her.
yeah. So we talked a lot about Grace. I wanted to ask you too about Elena and
Yeah.
kind of a contrast of her wardrobe. Well,
Mm,
with Nicole and Grace's, I
mm,
just found that
mm.
fascinating and like kind of like I guess can you talk a little about like your concept for her look and like where where you began with her because it is so striking and she's like obviously like such a key figure in the show, but very different than Grace.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, very exactly, very different. Everything is very, very different. And I mean, she's like Elena. She's such a, I mean, there are two goddesses from each their part of the universe. Those like Grace and Elena, and she's so attractive and so sensual, and when I mean, we should remember that this is also a story where you should not give too much away too early. So it is kind of who did it, who done it. So it's kind of keeping the audience like keeping them there.
Mhm.
So so we shouldn't reveal too much too early. But she is. I mean, you have to think: could she have done it? Could she have been a big part of? I mean, of course, she couldn't kill herself, but could she have been a bit part of the whole thing? And how crazy was she, or whatever? It's just like she was interesting, and she just tries to blend into that very wealthy 1%, and she of course she can't do that, but I think the very first scene where we see her with a baby at the ladies lunch, where she just kind of tries to follow up on all those ladies who are having that tea,
Mhm.
that's a really amazing scene.
For sure. And right after that, obviously, they go to like the auction, and she has that incredible
Mm,
dress. I guess can you talk
mm,
about that
mm.
dress that you again contrasting that with Grace and like her look
Yeah.
there and how she's trying to fit in maybe but really can't because of like
Mm.
just obviously she can't with that group. But like yeah, can you talk a little
but
about
that
that? Yeah.
but that her dress is interesting because that's actually just like it was just like a, I think it was $100 dress, so it was a cheap one. It was not like it was cheap, but everything on that body just like she made it shine. You could have put her in whatever, she just looked gorgeous. But yeah, but so she tries to blend in, and unfortunately, maybe the dress looks more expensive than it should, but on her. But it was a cheap dress. It was a cheap dress.
We also I wanted to talk a little about you mentioned like it's a whodunit and stuff and like
Yeah.
but yeah, so I want to bring up you Grant and I guess like can you talk about dressing
Mm,
him and I think there's obviously like casting him in this role and the way he plays it there's a real audience expectation of like his past roles and like his charm and stuff and like
mm,
I think like he really leans into that and it pays off so well by the end of the show. I guess can you talk about like dressing him and like kind of like he's a guy who doesn't necessarily he looks great in a tux, but he doesn't want to wear a tux, and it's like a very interesting character kind of like. Can you talk about
mm.
like yeah dress how you went about like conceptualizing his look and stuff?
I mean, I mean, he. you can't really get I mean, he's Hugh Grant. And he's just like, everybody wants him to be Hugh Grant, but he does this role really, 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 really well. And for a long time, he's that charming doctor, just like, I mean, and he's fun, and they have I mean, everything is just lovely, and their marriage and their life is just fantastic. And then suddenly something happens, and I mean, I tried to make him kind of just like a regular, good-looking, nice man. He could never have done anything.
Right.
Um, and he's a doctor. I mean, cancer doctor with children. He's just like the best you can get, right?
Yeah. Well, as we know, maybe not. Signe Sejlund, thank you so much for doing this. I'm doing on HBO. You can watch all the episodes now, and stick around. We'll talk to you in a second with the roundtable.